The tranquility of the English countryside was shattered. A fiery streak tore across the velvet canvas of night. It plummeted earthward, a celestial anomaly ending in a distant explosion. Silence descended once more, the only evidence of the event a faint orange glow on the horizon. The sheep in the fields, momentarily startled, resumed their peaceful grazing, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. Old Farmer McGregor, however, had borne witness to the spectacle. He stood by his window, pipe clenched firmly in his teeth, eyes narrowed in thought. He wasn't a man prone to flights of fancy, but this was no shooting star. This was something else entirely. Curiosity piqued. He pulled on his coat, a sense of unease settling in his gut. Whatever had fallen from the sky, he couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't going to be good. The spaceship lay crumpled in the heart of Farmer McGregor's west pasture. The once serene and quiet field was now a scene of chaos and destruction. The spaceship, a marvel of alien engineering, was now nothing more than a heap of twisted metal and shattered dreams. Smoke rose from the twisted metal, casting flickering shadows in the pre-dawn light. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning circuitry, a scent that mingled with the earthy aroma of the farmland. The silence of the early morning was punctuated by the occasional crackle of electrical sparks and the distant calls of waking birds. Inside, amidst the wreckage, stirred two figures. They were survivors of a journey that had gone terribly wrong, their presence a stark contrast to the lifeless machinery around them. The larger figure moved first, her movement slow and deliberate, as if every motion was a struggle against the weight of the world. The first, a woman of otherworldly beauty, her skin the colour of amethyst and her eyes like pools of liquid gold. Her features were delicate yet strong, a testament to her resilience and grace. She was a being from a distant star, a princess in her own right, now stranded on an alien world. She coughed, struggling to breathe, the air thick with the smell of burning circuitry and fear. Each breath was a reminder of the peril they had narrowly escaped and the uncertainty that lay ahead. Her body ached from the impact, but her spirit remained unbroken. She clutched a small bundle to her chest, her heart pounding in her ears. The bundle was her child, her most precious treasure, the reason she had fought so hard to survive. Her arms tightened around the tiny form, a protective instinct that transcended the boundaries of species and worlds.
"Shh, my little starling, we are safe now. Mama is here." Her voice was soft and soothing, a lullaby in the midst of chaos. She hoped her words would bring comfort to her child, even as she struggled to believe them herself.
The bundle wriggled in her arms, a sign of life and hope amidst the devastation. The child's movements were small and tentative, a reminder of their fragility and the need for protection. A tiny hand reaching out to touch her cheek. The touch was gentle, a connection that transcended words. It was a moment of pure love and trust, a bond that nothing could break. The princess, for she was indeed royalty from a distant star system, forced a smile. Her smile was a beacon of hope, a promise that they would find a way to survive and thrive in this new world. She had faced countless challenges before, and she would face this one with the same determination and courage. Their escape had been harrowing, their survival nothing short of a miracle. They had navigated through the dangers of space, evading enemies and overcoming obstacles, only to crash land on this unfamiliar planet. But they were alive, and that was a victory in itself. But they were alive, and that was all that mattered. The future was uncertain, but as long as they had each other, they could face whatever came their way. The bond between mother and child was unbreakable, a source of strength and hope. Now she needed to find help. They couldn't stay here. The wreckage was a temporary refuge, but they needed to find a safer place, a new home where they could rebuild their lives. She looked around, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of life, any hope of rescue. The journey ahead would be long and arduous, but she was ready to face it, for the sake of her child and their future. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon when Farmer McGregor reached the crash site. The early morning light cast long shadows across the fields, painting the landscape in hues of gold and amber. It was a serene scene, one that belied the chaos he was about to encounter. He approached cautiously, his trusty walking stick held out in front of him. Each step was measured, his eyes scanning the ground for any signs of danger. The air was still, almost too still, as if the world was holding its breath in anticipation. He'd seen enough in his years to know that things weren't always as they seemed, and this was definitely not how he'd expected to start his day. The wreckage was unlike anything he had ever seen before, twisted metal and strange materials scattered across his once pristine field. As he drew closer, he heard a noise. It was faint at first, almost drowned out by the rustling of the leaves and the distant call of a morning bird, but there it was, persistent and unmistakable. A soft, whimpering sound like a wounded animal. His heart quickened, a mix of curiosity and concern driving him forward. What could possibly be making that sound in the midst of such destruction? He rounded a particularly large piece of debris and stopped dead in his tracks. His breath caught in his throat as his eyes took in the sight before him. There, amidst the wreckage, stood the most extraordinary woman he'd ever seen. She was unlike anyone he had ever encountered, her presence both mesmerizing and otherworldly. She was tall and slender, her skin an impossible shade of violet, her clothing strange and shimmering. It was as if she had stepped out of a dream or perhaps a nightmare. In her arms she cradled a small child, its features hidden from view. The child was wrapped in a delicate fabric that seemed to glow faintly, adding to the surreal nature of the scene. Fear, raw and primal, emanated from her. It was a fear that transcended language, a universal plea for help that struck him to his core. But it was the desperation in her eyes, the sheer terror of a mother protecting her young, that truly stopped his heart. He could see the silent plea in her gaze, begging for understanding, for compassion.
My word. What happened here? Are you all right? His voice was gentle, filled with concern and a hint of awe. He took a tentative step forward, hoping to convey that he meant no harm, that he was there to help.
The alien princess watched the old man approach, her hand instinctively tightening on her daughter's tiny hand. She could sense no malice from him, only curiosity and a healthy dose of caution. Still, she was wary. She had no idea what kind of beings inhabited this planet, what customs they followed, what dangers they might pose. She had to be careful. Her daughter's life depended on it.
Please, we need help. My daughter, she's hurt. We need a safe place to hide.
She saw the flicker of compassion in the old man's eyes and knew she'd made the right decision.
I can pay you. I have jewels, treasures beyond your wildest dreams.
It's all right, lass. No need for payment. You're safe here. Come on, let's get you out of this wreckage.
Farmer McGregor's cottage was small, its stone walls worn smooth by time and weather. Nestled in a quiet valley, it stood as a testament to resilience and simplicity. The roof, covered in moss and lichen, blended seamlessly with the surrounding landscape, making it almost a part of the earth itself. The garden, though modest, was filled with vibrant flowers and herbs, a splash of colour against the grey stone. Inside, the cottage was just as unassuming. Wooden beams crisscrossed the ceiling, and the furniture, though worn, was sturdy and comfortable. The fireplace, the heart of the home, crackled with a warm, inviting glow. It wasn't much, but it was home. The walls were adorned with simple decorations, a few family photos and handmade crafts that spoke of a life lived with care and love, and for now it would be a sanctuary for the princess and her daughter. They had travelled far, seeking refuge from a world that had turned hostile. The princess, though weary, found solace in the simplicity of the cottage. It was a stark contrast to the grandeur of her former palace, but it offered something far more valuable: safety and peace. He settled them in his spare room, a cosy space filled with the scent of lavender and old books. The room was small but inviting, with a soft bed covered in a patchwork quilt. Shelves lined the walls, filled with well-worn books and trinkets collected over the years. The window offered a view of the garden, where the flowers swayed gently in the breeze. The princess watched as he fussed over her daughter, his calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he examined her for injuries. His touch was careful, his eyes filled with concern. It was clear that he was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He treated the child with the same care and attention he would give to his own.
She seems all right, just a bit shaken, like the rest of us. His voice was calm and reassuring, a steady presence in the midst of their turmoil. He offered a small smile, a gesture of comfort in a world that had been anything but kind.
He turned to the princess, his expression softening. There was a kindness in his eyes, a silent promise that they would be safe here. It was a look that spoke of understanding and empathy, a recognition of their shared humanity.
Now then, you look like you could use a good cup of tea, and something to eat. His tone was light, almost playful, as he tried to lift their spirits. He moved with practiced ease, preparing a simple meal with the ingredients he had on hand. Can't have you lot starving in my house, can I? His smile was warm and genuine, a beacon of hope in their darkest hour. He set the table with care, making sure everything was just right.
The princess nodded gratefully, her heart warming at his simple kindness. She had been through so much, and this small act of generosity meant more to her than words could express. It was a reminder that there was still good in the world, that there were still people who cared. She knew she had much to learn about this planet and its people, but for now she was content to rest in the safety of his home, surrounded by the comforting sounds of a world that was both strange and wondrous. The chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, all these sounds created a symphony of peace that lulled her into a sense of security. She took a deep breath, allowing herself to relax for the first time in what felt like an eternity. This humble abode, with its simple comforts and kind inhabitants, was more than just a refuge. It was a new beginning.